Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, to the timing of the EU referendum. Yesterday on the Andrew Marr Show, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon had this to say.
Two reasons why I would not be in favour of a June referendum. One, you might interpret as being a bit selfish. The Scottish election is in May. Indeed, the Welsh, the Northern Irish, London elections in May. I think to have a referendum campaign starting in parallel would be disrespectful to those important elections.
You've still got 7 weeks after those May elections.
But you would, given the statutory campaign period for the European referendum, you would undoubtedly start to confuse those issues. But the second reason is I think it would be better for David Cameron to leave more time between if he does get a deal at the February European Council, to leave more time between that deal and the point of decision. Because one of the big problems I see for the in-campaign at the moment is that as far as David Cameron is concerned, it's very much focused on these narrow issues of renegotiation, when in actual fact, if the in-campaign is going to prevail, this is going to have to become a positive in-principle campaign about why it's better for the UK to stay within the European Union.
Nicola Sturgeon there. Well, Tim Lawton, she's got a point, hasn't she, over the timing?
She has a point, and I agree with it. We don't want the EU referendum to be mixed up with Scottish, London, Welsh elections. But I agree with her for very different reasons. I want to have a referendum as late as possible. The Prime Minister has offered a referendum by the end of 2017. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to try and get some sort of closure over what's been a very unhappy relationship over many years between Europe and the British people. I want to make sure that there aren't, the day after the referendum result, if it's a narrow majority to stay in, we've got a lot of people saying, well, hold on, you had another 18 months. You could have negotiated and got a better deal. Why didn't you go to the wire? And I don't want people to have that excuse of saying, crying foul, that it wasn't a genuine vote. It's got to be a genuine vote, and he needs to go to the 11th hour to get the very best possible deal he can for the United Kingdom and for the future of Europe.
Do you think he is keen to have it in June, to rush it, as you would see it, because that's his best chance of winning to stay in on his so-called renegotiated settlement?
There are all sorts of factors. Clearly, the Prime Minister wants a yes vote. Everybody
absolutely.
knows,
but he thinks that's his best chance then.
He thinks he can get some low-hanging fruit, and I think he'll get some other things that might surprise people now. And let's have the vote as soon as possible to dispel the uncertainty which he's afraid of. I just don't think it's going to cut the mustard if we then get a narrow vote in favour, and this argument will go on and on, not just within the Conservative Party, within the country as a whole, and that's not good for the stability of Europe for years coming forward.
Do you think there is a legitimacy question here, Rachel, if he does go as early as June? He says he could have a settlement and then wants to put that to the people as quickly as possible.
Well, if there's a settlement, I think we should have the vote. Not for political, yes, not for political reasons, but because I think it is the right thing to do. So if you are a business and you're deciding whether you want to invest in Leeds or in Madrid, then, we want to resolve that question of whether we are in the European Union or not. Uncertainty is bad for business, and it's bad for people who work for business. So I think let's resolve this uncertainty. We've been going on about a referendum for years now. Everybody knows that it's coming. So let's get that deal, and let's hope it's as good as possible deal for Britain, and then let's get on, make that decision, because that is in the best interest of our country, whatever the decision is.
Does it put your campaign at a disadvantage if it's in June?
No, absolutely not. We prepare for the earliest date that we expect it. I think June is certainly likely for the reasons the fact that the Prime Minister doesn't want much scrutiny of his trivial renegotiation. But if it does happen in June...
You don't know what the renegotiation is, Robert.
The only people who don't believe in reform, they've made their mind up. The rest of us are waiting to see the outcome.
You've said you'll stay in no matter what. We've seen the maximum...
And you'll pull out,
We've seen the maximum what the renegotiation will achieve. He set that out in the Donald Tusk letter. As the date, we'll be ready for June. I think the grassroots campaigning that we've got. We had 150 street stalls throughout January. They'll be able to deliver the leaflets. The in-campaign will have to rely on Goldman Sachs to pay for their delivered leaflets.
Well, they're probably not bad people to pay for it, I suppose.
I'm sure they're pretty good for it.
I was going to say, are they paying
hedge funds and others supporting them? I mean, look, it's a race to the bottom if we're going to criticise each other's donors. People have an interest in this. Why have Goldman Sachs given us money? Because they have done economic analysis.
Joining the euro and they're back staying in. I appreciate
it's because
that.
they've done analysis and shown the economic impact that is at risk from this referendum. We will have donations, I'm sure you will as well, from a wide range of different people. Let's not get into a silly...
Well, and the certainty question is important, whichever side of the argument it seems that you actually stand, which may then make your point about waiting so long difficult
for some businesses. We've had uncertainty for many years. Waiting another 18 months to get an absolutely definitive, that was the best possible deal we could do, take it or leave it, I think it's worth waiting for.
If the government... Can I just ask...
decisions whichever way they go, but they like uncertainty be resolved.
Right.
Uncertainty has
Let me ask another question, because we're not entirely certain in terms of parliamentary process whether there would be an option for MPs if they didn't like the idea of a June referendum because of the reasons Nicola Sturgeon has said and because of the reasons you have said. Is there any way Parliament could stop it?
Well, I presume we could. I mean, the EU referendum bill sets out a timetable, but presumably if a majority of MPs didn't like how it was panning out, then we could force a vote to overturn that legislation.
But the likelihood of there being a majority, I suppose, it is
yeah.
unlikely, because Labour wouldn't vote against timing for the reasons that Nicola Sturgeon said.
Labour's position would be, but certainly my position is once the Prime Minister has got that renegotiation, whatever that brings, we should really get on and take that decision to the people. At the end of the day, it's the people who are going to decide. We should give them that chance.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you again.
I've been getting